going on up here. I'm Danny, I'm an alcoholic. I see a lot of the usual suspects in here. Yeah, I know some names too. So,
don't be scared.
I do have a big mouth, Drew, as you know. So, can everybody hear me in the back? Yeah? Okay, good. Okay, so the date of my last drink was January 7th, 1985, and that was in the 1900s. TV had two colors, black and white. Children were the original remote control. And alcoholism was rampant. So, this group does it right. And this is kind of the way I came up in recovery is a new person comes in and you have no idea what you're in for, right? And they hook you. They bring you right in and they get you involved and they surround you and they keep you safe and they protect you and they teach you. And it's almost like you can't help but become a part of that. And so those of you that picked up some chips tonight, you never have to be new again. You only have to have 30 days once, 60 days, whatever it is. And so suffering is optional, as I was told. And you've given me entirely too much time tonight. Let me just tell you already. So before we started, I saw a bunch of people going into the side room. And Thomas goes, and if it wasn't for Thomas, and if it wasn't for AA, I wouldn't have gone in there. So, God, I remember when Thomas was new. My God. Talk about growth. That guy, he has grown. I called them my boys, these guys. The growth. Drew, I remember when he was new. I get so happy to see them and to see where they are in their recoveries because you can see the miracle, right? And there's something that happens in the eyes at some point for most of us, if not all of us. You cannot deny that. You can't manufacture that. You can't make it up. There's something that happens. There's a light that goes on. There's a click. And that is nothing short of a miracle because it shows, right? And when you watch how a person conducts themselves, you can tell. So I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York. And if you ever saw the movie A Bronx Tale, that was how I grew up. That neighborhood was on the west side of the Bronx Zoo. Mine was on the right side of the east side of the Bronx Zoo, and it was just like that. The neighborhood was run by enterprising businessmen, and it was safe, and it was protected, and it's just how it was. And so I went to Catholic school, which was a whole nother story. And, I got beat by Dominican nuns. I couldn't even understand them. And priests. And, it's just, you couldn't get away with anything because they're all over the neighborhood. You just turn around, there they are. And they don't walk, they just hover, And so it was the kind of place where if you got in trouble a block and a half away, by the time you got home, your mother knew. Because it kind of traveled down the block. And everybody looked after everybody else's kids and disciplined them. And so it was the whole thing. And so it was just what I knew, And my father was always in the bar after work. So I went to any one of 3 bars when I was a kid to get some money for, something to drink or a snack or something. Because I'm playing ball in the street all the time. I can't play ball. I was always last picked. And so whether it was street hockey, stickball, wiffle ball, football, it didn't matter what it was, I was last picked. For the record, Smitty was worse than me, but he had all the good equipment. So he got picked just before I did. So, I'd go to the bar and it was nothing to hang out there and drink soda and eat pretzels and play pinball and shuffleboard and stuff, and that's just how it was. And so these enterprising businessmen were there, and on occasion, they'd be in my yard at a barbecue. They'd be at the table in my house for Thanksgiving, which I always thought it was just normal, you know. But they liked my father. They trusted my father. He was like their only friend outside of what they did, because he never wanted anything from them, and he offered his friendship, and he was careful to not ask for their help. And I remember him telling me about this later on. And so, you know, now I'm going into my teenage years. I get out of grade school, and I go to I get public high school, because I'm done. I can't take it anymore. And I go to public high school, and that summer in between was when I started to drink. And, you know, the book talks about like a moment of clarity and being free, you know, from the bondage of self. Well, that's what alcohol did for me. I was like, whoa, this is the greatest. If this can do this for me, I will never let it go. I remember saying that to myself. I'm 13 years old. And one night I'm coming home, and I'm walking across the street from the parish that I went to, and I remember I took a half pint out of my pocket, and I held it up like this, and I looked at the church, and I said, I don't need you. I got this. Little did I know, disaster was soon to follow, but you couldn't have told me that. So, continued on my merry way. I ended up in that school for 2 years. I spent my first year loaded in the classroom, my second year loaded at friends' houses, and my parents caught up to that, and they pulled me out, put me in a private school for 2 years, where I went to school with wealthy kids of 16 driving brand new Cadillacs. I'm like, this is not the world I know. Their parents are, where were your parents? So they're in Japan for a few months, you know? So we're tearing up the house, you know, like, just, it was just a whole different world. So I had fun with that for 2 more years. And after 4 years of high school, I had nothing to show for it but a bad attitude and a black leather jacket. And so I quit school because I failed high school algebra 3 times. So my head said to me, quit, you're stupid. And I said, okay. So that's what I did. Continued on my merry way of drinking. So my first 5 years of drinking was fun. The next 3 were some fun, and the last 2 were absolutely no fun at all. So I'm 17, and I kind of think I might have a problem. But I'm 17. I'll grow out of it. Well, I grew into it. And so, you know, my mother is like, oh, bless that woman. I tormented her. And she was a rageaholic. She was an angry woman. And she used to chase me with wiffle ball bats and wooden spoons and throw things at me. And I'd be like, I was like a ninja. And so I've come to learn over the last few years with the help of someone I love that she loved me the best way she could. Right? So I'm a kid. She teaches me how to balance a checkbook, how to cook, how to wash laundry, how to clean a house. I'm learning this stuff as a kid. I'm like, I don't want to do any of this. And she said, I don't want you to end up with someone because you can't do this for yourself. So these are the skills that she taught me. My father taught me some other skills, like he would say stuff like, listen, if you owe somebody $20 and you tell them you're going to pay him Friday, and Friday comes and you don't have that $20, you go find them. And you tell them, hey man, I know I said I'd give you the $20 today, but I don't have it. I can give it to you whenever. He said, you don't duck them. And I'm like, what does that mean? You know, like things that I ended up understanding later on, you know. He was a good man. He was a World War II vet. And he just didn't want to be bothered, you know. My mother married him when she was 18 because she thought he looked like Frank Sinatra, and she wanted to get out of the house. So I know this because she told me. And 14 years later, here I come, the miracle baby. And my mother said to me one time, "You were the most loved baby." And I said, "Well, you should have left me with those people." So she never saw things the way I saw them. And so what I learned is I want two things in life. This is what I learned years into recovery. I only wanted two things. I wanted to be loved and accepted. That's it. That's not a lot to ask for. Couldn't get it. Found it in the bottle, so I thought. So, around 17, things are, not as... I'm kind of looking at people guys I know are going to college. They're getting on with their lives, and I'm still drinking on the corner. Now I'm drinking with their younger brothers and their cousins, and I'm just going from job to job. And my life is kind of like it's just empty, And the more empty it feels, the more I got to fill it, right, with alcohol. So I was prone to bad behavior. If you cut me off in traffic, I would chase you until I got you and try to jack you out of the car. And sounds funny now. And I did that one too many times, and a guy put a gun up to the window, and that cured me of that bad habit. Now I'm in my late teens, right? And so I'm out with like about 8 of my friends, and we're at this strip with all these bars, and we get kind of separated into two groups, and all of a sudden one group comes back and they go, "These guys pulled a knife on us," and I'm like, "Where are they?" And so, look at me, come on. So they went into this apartment door. The apartments were over these stores, but it was the street level door, so I start kicking the door in. And I'm kicking the door, and kicking the door, and kicking the door, and finally the door busts open. And I go into this vestibule, and there's a glass pane door inside there, and there's a staircase going up to the apartments. And I turn around, and my friends are gone. I turn back. One guy opens up the glass door, and he's got a pistol in his hand. And he points it at me. And I look at the top of the stairs, and another guy's coming down the stairs with a machete. And time stood still. It froze. Things got very quiet. I went deaf. And I just looked at him and I said, "Just do it." And he said to me, "You're crazy, man. Just get out of here." And time came right back to me. I could hear everything, and I was present, and I turned around and I ran. And I didn't know it at the time, but like I had this thing that I just didn't care. I didn't care if I lived or died. I just didn't have guts to do it. So my drinking's getting worse, I ended up getting arrested in Oregon, of all places, at the age of 20 for a DUI. I drove drunk 1,000,000 times in the Bronx. Never had a problem, except making left turns. But I get arrested, and they put me in a drunk tank, and I go, "I don't belong in a drunk tank. Drunks belong in a drunk tank." And my aunt, who I was staying with my aunt and uncle at the time, I tell her, "Don't bail me out." I call her in whatever time, it was middle of the night. And I said, "Don't bail me out. I get the arraignment in the morning." And so she shows up to get me out of jail. And I don't realize this, but she's got 90 days sober. I don't know this. That's why I can't find alcohol in the house. And she shows up with her sponsor. And I got arrested with her sponsor's son. So I don't know that she's 90 days sober. I don't know any of this stuff. So she ends up taking me to a meeting where I go like, "Gee, I don't know. If I got a problem, I really want to know, because I really got to... I just want to get loaded." I clean that up. I end up seeing a counselor in the Bronx, and that gets taken care of, and I keep going on my merry way. At 22, I end up in detox. Because I used to detox myself in the bed every once in a while for like 3 to 5 days. And I had a dog that I lived in the basement of my parents' house because I was so successful. And the windows were these casement windows that were elevated, right? And my dog used to be out in the yard, and the dog would come by the window, and he would, he would look in the window, just look in the window and go, about his business. But one day he stopped, and he looked in the window, and he said to me, you're pathetic. So my first thought was, that's a big word for a dog. And my next thought was, uh-oh, dogs don't talk. I'm going through the DTs, I'm hallucinating. And I remember because it had happened to my father when I was 15. And so I get the brilliant idea. I go, you know what? The next time I do this, already I'm in trouble, right? The next time I do this, I'm going to the hospital because they give you drugs. And I won't hallucinate. Great idea. So that's what I do. I go to the hospital. And 5 days later, I feel like Superman, and I'm getting ready to leave, and everybody is talking about rehabs and all this stuff. And this one girl says to me, where are you going? I said, I'm going to AA. I'm going. And she goes, no, you're not. You're going to get drunk. And I was so offended. Because you don't even know me. Well, a year later, I'm right back there again. And I can't understand how I got back here so fast. I don't remember a lot of that year. It was blackouts and blackouts and blackouts. And so I'm back in the detox, and I go, I'm standing in the room, and I'm looking at the big windows. I'm on the 4th floor of the hospital. I'm looking at the big windows, and I'm standing in the middle of the room, and I'm going, I just want to get up the courage. Just want to get up the courage to take a run and dive out that window and kill myself. I can't do this. I can't live like this. Well, somebody must have thought of it first because they had the mesh wiring on the windows on the outside. So that canceled that out. I used to look in the garage, like I'm going to put the garden hose in the tailpipe, and I'm going to do that one. Right? I was very dramatic. And so I would get drunk and black out and forget about that. So then I was going to save up money and have somebody kill me. And every time I saved up some money, I would drink. So that didn't work. So then I said, what am I going to do, man? So I go back to this detox again. And I'm in that room, and the nurse comes in. She says, listen, you got to go in the day room and socialize. And I said, I'm in detox. What do you mean socialize? You can't stay in the room. So I go out to the day room, and I see a guy who I'd been in with the year before. He acts like it's a reunion. Hey, man, how you doing? I'm wearing pajamas. How am I doing? How do you think I'm doing? I was mortified. He says, don't worry about it. I've been here 9 times. I said, 9 times? I can't come back here again. I went to the counselor, and I said, listen, you better lock me up. You better send me someplace and get me off the street, because I'm telling you right now, if you let me out of here, I'm getting drunk, and I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to put my head on a train track, and it's your fault. Brilliant ideas I had. So she says, don't worry, we'll take care of it. Well, this young kid shows up. He's like around my age. And he goes, I'm like, who are you? He goes, I'm going to take you to treatment. And I said, oh, no, I'm going to look into that, And he goes, no, you're going. And I said, well, I don't know. And he goes, oh, you're going. So I get out of detox. The guy takes me to treatment. He tells me to pack a suitcase. He goes, you might not be leaving. Because I was supposed to go for an assessment. And he goes, but they might keep you. Well, I didn't know this was the plan all along. So I always kept 2 sets of clothes in my trunk because I never knew where I was going to end up. And I end up at this treatment center on Staten Island, which I'd never been to. Well, I had been a couple times, but I don't remember it. And I'm at this place, and he dumps me off, and there I am. And so turns out the director of the treatment center is best friends with the counselor I saw for the DUI. So now I got a hook. I probably get a private room, So I go up to this guy, and Dennis used to play for the New York Giants in the 50s. He was a very big man. And I went up to him. I go, hey, I'm a friend of Ray's, and so I'm here for an assessment. And he goes, rips the envelope out of my hand. He goes, "Go sit down. You're not going nowhere." I'm like, well, how rude. So I ended up having to stay there for 28 days, which was the best thing that ever happened. But I only had 2 days worth of clothes, so I had to keep switching my clothes, washing my clothes in between, because again, I was so successful. So there's like 30 of us in there, and we're all sitting in this room and waiting for the director to come out and give us some words of wisdom. Tell me something. Give me some hope. And he comes out and he looks around, all of us, waves his finger around, and he goes, "Only one of you are going to make it. The rest of you are going to die." And he walks away and he goes in his office and slams the door. And I go, "Well, that's my sign." I go up to the nurse. I go, "Where do I sign?" She goes, "Sign what?" I said, "To get out of here, because I'm not going to make it." She goes, "How do you know?" I said, "I know. Trust me, I know. I'm not that one." So she says, "Come over to the window." So I look at the window outside on the hospital grounds, and she says, "What do you see out there?" I said, "Wind and ice and snow." And she says, "Yeah, it's 19 degrees out. That's what's waiting for you. You got nothing else. You stay here. You got a warm bed. We'll feed you. Who knows what'll happen?" I said, "Well, she does have a point." So I only went because my parents were throwing me out of the house. Right? That's what we do. We make deals. We make deals. And so I come back from treatment. And halfway through treatment, this guy shows up again. The same guy that dumped me off. And I said, "Who are you?" He said, "Don't worry about it. I'll be picking you up when you get out." He picks me up when I get out, takes me to my house. And I said, "Okay, thanks for the ride. I'll see you around." And he goes, "Go put your stuff in the house and get back in the car." I'm like, "You can't talk to me like that." He goes, "You want to bet?" I go in the house, I put my stuff in, I come back. Where are we going? I'm going to a meeting. I'm like, oh no. One of these guys. Well, it turns out he's the sponsee of the director of the program that I was in treatment in. Like it's like all connected like that. I'm like, this is what happens when you ask for help. You get it. So he starts taking me to meetings, right? Now, I got nothing else. I burnt through all my friends. I have no friends left. I wreaked havoc all over my neighborhood. I was an embarrassment. I was unemployed. I'm in detox. I got high blood pressure, bad white cell count, beginning of cirrhosis. I want to kill myself. And the doctor comes in with my test results to tell me this stuff. And I looked at him. In all honesty, I looked him dead in his face and I said, "Did my mother tell you to say that?" Because that's something she would do, And this is a trained medical professional, right? And he just the guy looked just devastated. And he walked away. So now here I am. This guy, he's taking me to meetings and meetings and meetings and meetings. "I'll pick you up tomorrow." And I got nothing. Right? I got nothing. I got nowhere to go. I hate you people. I don't want to be here. And so I go, all right, if I get kicked out of AA, I can go drink. I can say it doesn't work. So I'm very inappropriate in meetings. I am nasty. I am disrespectful. I'm trying to pick arguments with people. I'm trying to pick fights. It was a pretty wild time back then. And you had Bobby Arms over there. Well, he got the name because he had humongous arms. And he stole a New York City bus one night to drive home. He was drunk and it was cold out, so he took the bus home, parked in his driveway, and the cops came and arrested him. So you had Bobby Arms, you had Joey D, a.k.a. Pinky Ring Joe, a.k.a. Spiritual Joe. He looked like Robert De Niro in Goodfellas and sounded just like it. And then you had Tony 38 Long, who was about this big and carried a 38 long barrel revolver on him all the time. So we used to goof on him, like, you got to stand on a chair to get that out of the holster. We had so many guys with the same name. We had Big Petey, then we had Little Petey, and then we have Medium Petey. And then this other Petey comes along. And so we're like, what are we going to call this Petey? Right? So I'm watching TV with some of my friends from meetings, right? We're watching football or something. And I saw a commercial. You know that every Christmas Chia Pet comes out with a new Chia Pet, right? And it was Chia Head. It was like just a guy, right? And I'm looking at it, and I'm going, hey guys, doesn't that look like the new Petey? And they're like, oh my God, it does. So that was Chia Petey. So, just like the old neighborhood had names of guys that, it's not their real names, but it's what they're called. Well, in AA, we had the same thing. There's guys for years, I didn't know what their real names were. And so I get this, my sponsor makes me make coffee at this home group, right? Because this is your home group. It's my home group, but now it's your home group. You're going to make coffee. I said, I don't drink coffee. Yeah, you're going to make coffee. And you're going to put out the ashtrays, because they used to smoke in the meetings then. Thank you very much. And so he said, don't worry about the lung cancer. He said, you got to worry about your alcoholism. So I said, well, I don't smoke, so I'm not putting out ashtrays and cleaning ashtrays. He goes, no, you're doing it. So I start doing it, right? And I start liking it. I don't want to tell anybody that, I was just like, all right, I'll do it. And I'm there doing this for 2 years. And then it's time, I got to give up the keys, and I don't want to give up the keys. Right? So in the course of this time, I start doing some work, like I couldn't read 2 sentences and tell you what it said. So these guys used to take me, oh my God, they used to take me to these divey diners all the time. Pete's in the square, and this place over here, and they'd make me sit in the corner where I couldn't get out. And I'd sit there and I'd go, I hate you. Your wives hate you, your dogs hate you. Just let me go. And they're like, shut up, just sit there and shut up, you might learn something. But they used to talk about recovery, right? And when I was finally able to remember, read and comprehend stuff from the big book, I'm like, I remember when he talked about that. I remember when he talked about that. I'm like, oh my God. So I was very disruptive, and I tried to get kicked out, and they'd say, keep coming back. I hate you. So, but I had nowhere else to go. So there was a core group of guys that understood what was going on with me, even though I didn't. And a lot of people stayed away from me, rightly so. But these guys stayed tight on me, and they never dealt with me one-on-one. There was always at least 3 of them. I spent most of my first year in the kitchen or in the parking lot. More so in the parking lot. I'd sit in the back of the meeting, so I could look at girls, because I need a relationship, right? That's what I need. That's going to fix me. Well, these guys hooked me under both arms. Well, we got a special seat for you. I'm like, oh, they recognize I'm special. And they make me sit in the front. And they go, now you look at the speaker and pay attention, because we're going to ask you questions. And I'm sitting there going, well, I can't turn around. I know what they're doing. And so, but it worked. It worked because over the years I graduated to that point where I just naturally would go to the front, because it makes me feel comfortable. And so these guys would just surround me and they go, you can't act like this. You can't act like this here. What's the matter with you? You can't threaten people. Bobby Arms gave me a resentment. I jump up, he jumps up. We're going after each other in a meeting, and it's like 3 guys take him this way, 3 guys. That happened a lot. And this was flavor. This was the flavor of the recovery at the time. And I wasn't the only one, in all fairness. So there was a lot of resentment flying around back in those days, and it was dealt with. And I was raised in recovery. That's where I was truly raised. They turned a boy into a man. And I can never repay what they did for me. These guys, the Joey D's and all these guys, I ended up being a part of a men's group for a couple years, and they used to take me to, we used to go to this diner called, after the Friday night men's meeting, we used to go to this diner called the Golden Eagle, which we called the Golden Buzzard. And so we'd anywhere from 10 to 15 guys, right? And we got the whole big table full of guys. And I was one of the youngest people around. And so these guys were all 40 and older. And I thought they were half dead. I'm like, you guys are half dead. You got no reason to stop drinking. So, of course, they're telling me I don't know anything, and they're right. So they knew all of my horrendous behaviors and things I was so embarrassed and ashamed of. And that's the stuff I didn't want to tell anybody, right? And I hear guys talking about that kind of stuff, and laughing. And I'm like, you can't say that stuff out loud. What's the matter with you? People will hear you. And they're like, we don't do it anymore. We're free from that stuff. I'm like, oh, I don't know what that is. So in my first couple of years of sobriety, I didn't act right. I misbehaved a lot. I was going on tons of meetings, and I was doing like coffee, and I would go to booking meetings in the city, and I would give rides, and I would do this and I would do that. But I was running the streets at night, and I was doing wrong. And one time these guys, they came to me, they're like, what is wrong with you? You're like a whack job. Like, you're here all the time, you're doing this, you're doing that, but yet you're bouncing off the walls. I could feel that a drink was coming. And I got scared, And I fought every bit of this thing all the way. They told me if you don't get the first step, you might not get the rest of it. So I had to learn about powerlessness and unmanageability. And I said, nah, I don't have that. And my sponsor would say, oh yeah? Well, what about this time? And what about that time? And what about this? And what about that? And I'm going, oh, that's what that is? Yeah, that's what that is. You can't run your own life. You're no good at it. So then, we're looking at step 2, and I'm going, yeah, I went to Catholic school, man. I can't do it. I can't do it. I see the word in the 3rd step. I'm not doing it. Not doing it. He said, just take it easy. Don't drink. Go to meetings. Come to meetings. And so then I'm like, okay, it's a concept in my head. Then we do 3, and I'm giving him a hard time, and I'm with him and his sponsor and his sponsor, and I'm giving all of them a hard time, and they're trying to help me understand, and I'm having a hard time, and so then now here I am, I can feel myself getting closer to a drink because of how I'm behaving, and I finally told them what I was doing, and they said, listen, man, you're not sober. You're just not drinking. And you're not going to make it. And my heart was broken because I wanted their respect so bad. And they said, you got to call us when you want to do that stuff. You got to ask for help. And I said, okay. And I started to do that. And no surprise, I started to feel better. I started to settle down. I started to calm down. I started to sleep better at night. My sponsor said, listen, man, you gotta reach out. You gotta ask for something. You gotta ask for help from somewhere because you can't do it. And so I remember the first night I did that. I got on my knees and I said, listen, he's telling me to do this. I don't want to do this. He's telling me to do this, and he's telling me that you can help me. And I'll tell you what, I don't think you can. And I'll tell you something else. I don't even want you. How about that? Now, what are you going to do with that? I woke up the next morning, and I felt this weight lifted off of me. And I'm like, wow, that's insane. And my sponsor said, just be honest, because he knows what you're thinking and how you're feeling anyway, so you might as well tell the truth. So I did. And I just kept trying it, I kept trying it. And so, in the first step, I learned about honesty. In the second step, I learned about hope and then faith. And now we're looking at going into 4 with some courage and integrity. And these are things I don't know anything about. See, these are the principles behind the steps that are the character assets that replace the defects. And so I'm learning that if I incorporate those things into my life, I don't need those other things anymore. because they don't work for me. Because I'm like, well, if I get rid of my defects, well, no, I'm nothing. And I was told, listen, if you ever need a defect, it'll be close by. You can always call on it, but you just might not need it. So I'm doing this, right? And I'm learning about this stuff. And a lot of it is still in my head, right? It's still kind of in my head. It's not here yet. So then, I'm going forward, and I'm looking at the defects, man, and I'm like, oh, brother, this is the stuff. I didn't know. It's my behaviors that were going to kill me. I can't act out and not drink. It doesn't go together. The defects go with the drinking, but the assets don't fit. They don't work together. So if I want to be sober, I got to act right. So I start looking at this stuff and working on it, and I start talking to a higher power, and I'm asking for help with it, but I'm still somewhat of a loose cannon at times. I'm like ready, fire, aim. I got a hair trigger, and I come to learn that it's really fear. It's really fear. I always wanted to be a tough guy. I wasn't a tough guy. I learned it was fear. So I had to address my fears, right? So I over the years, I've gone for extra help to get extra credit. To learn about myself on deeper levels, And so I'm working on these defects, and I'm learning about willingness and humility. You gotta be kidding me, man. This is heavy stuff. This is not for sissies. This is tough business that we're in here. We're in the business of saving lives. This is not about making friends first. If you don't like that, too bad, because you might become friends. We become friends, but the first order of business is saving lives. Because we're dealing with something that wants us dead. It's a stone killer. Make no mistake about it. And it's working to try to get us any which way it can. It'll come at you and you don't even see it coming. That's why we got to stay close. That's why we got to talk to other people so that they can help us see it. So now I'm working on amends, right? And I make my list, and I'm looking, I'm going like, oh man, I don't want to do this. Now, my fourth step after the time when I was acting out and not drinking, my fourth step in AA was bigger than the original fourth step because I had done so much stupid stuff. So now I'm looking at these amends, right? And I got to go to store owners in my neighborhood because of how I behaved in their stores, right? And I worked for a couple of them. And so I had to do this stuff. There was a time when, I was acting like a fool in the neighborhood, and one of the enterprising businessmen came out of the bar and put a hook around my neck and took me down a side street. And my friends are all standing over there going, hey, hey. And he's like, mind your business. Takes me down the side street and he goes, don't embarrass your parents. And don't embarrass this neighborhood. Yes, sir. So I went to a different neighborhood. And that's what you do, right? So I ended up going out to Oregon to my aunt and uncles because they got me an attorney and they did all this stuff. And I was so upset that I had put her through this. At 90 days of sobriety, and I had no idea what I was doing. I went out there and I made it, and she's like, honey, it's okay. We love you. And you see, but I'm still not at a place where I love me, and so I'm still struggling with some of this. And this takes time. This really takes time. And a lot of people don't want to put the time in. And those people that have understand. And so it's easier to just stick around and put your time in. Because let me tell you something, it's no bargain going the other way. And so So I'm making amends, and I'm going to all these store owners, and I'm making these amends. But there's a good reason that 9 comes after the first 8, because by the time you get to 9, hopefully you're showing you're a little different than you were when you first got here. So people kind of buy in, right? And they can see that you're trying to be different, you're trying to do different. So the amends can be a little easier in that sense. So of course my sponsor's like, that one's not going. You're not reaching out to that one. No, not going to happen. So I was brand new sober, and I sent two cards to 2 ex-girlfriends, telling them how sorry I was, and I didn't care which one answered me. I just wanted one of them to answer me, because because I'm broken, I'm empty, and I'm scared, and I'm lonely, and I want that. And neither one of them answered me, fortunately. So, now I'm learning the right way to do this stuff, and so I'm talking to all these store owners, and taking care of that stuff. I go to my friends' parents because of things I did there, and I go to my friends that had stopped talking to me, and I do that with them. And I'm like, wow, this is... All of a sudden, I can walk down the block, and I can look people in the eye. I'm not hiding my head down. I'm not crossing the street to get away from them. I'm not embarrassed. I'm not so ashamed. And so I go to this one meeting in my neighborhood, and this was early on, and I'm pacing back and forth, because they got that, that silver and blue AA sign, that round sign. Well, it's like that Batman beacon in the sky, right? And so it's on the door, and I think everybody can see it. And I'm going, no, you got to be kidding me. So I'm going back and forth. Finally, I don't think anybody sees me. I duck inside the building. I go down the basement. I go into the room. Who's in there but half my neighborhood? And they're like, we've been waiting for you. We got a seat for you. And I'm like, oh, man, is this where you've been? I thought you were dead. And they're like, yeah, we thought you were dead too. I see my father's friend, one of his old drinking buddies. And Roger says to me, where's your pops? And I said, I don't know if he'll ever make it. He said, you tell your pops I'm here. You give him my phone number. You tell him to call me. And I'm like, yes, my pops could get sober too. So I go home. I go, Dad, I saw Roger at the meeting. He told me to give you his number. He wants you to call him. My father looks me dead in the face. And he says, I always thought Roger drank too much. He never did get sober. But, Roger was a good man. And so I had friends, Little Mike and Big Mike, and they were father and son, and they were sober. Big Andy and Little Andy, they were sober. And I wanted my father in there so bad. I just wanted that connection with him, Could never get it. So we were able to do better as father and son, only because I was sober, and he loved me so much. We could go to dinner, and I'd have to set some boundaries. Dad, you can't drink when we're out together. You can't have been drinking when we go out. I need you to do that for me. And he did it. So we had 7 years together before he passed, And he passed in 1992, and sometimes I feel closer to him today than ever. It's the most bizarre thing. So now I'm getting some time together in sobriety, and I'm putting time in, but I'm learning that I got this codependent nature, which ended up costing me a lot of time, a lot of heartache over the years. And when I learned about that, I was devastated. Guy says to me, you handed over your alcoholism to that. And I'm like, oh my God. And it broke my heart. So I had to do some heavy work on that stuff, which was really good. I ended up going back to college, and in my 40s, and I got 2 college degrees. I got a bachelor's and a master's, straight A's. Same guy who failed high school algebra 3 times. I got college algebra, I got straight A's. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, how does that happen? And sobriety, that's how that happens. And so I get my degrees. I'm a licensed professional in the state of Florida. And I get to teach. For 7 years, I got to teach part-time at the school that I went to. And that was I've had some of the greatest experiences that you can imagine in recovery and in my life. And so I get to teach, and it's adult students. Everybody's like 35 plus, mostly in their 40s, and it's a minority-based school. So I get this class called Music and Empowerment. So I go walking in there and I go, okay, who wants to learn about hip-hop? And they're looking at me, they're like, Professor, please. Please, Professor. You're going to teach us about hip-hop? I'm like, yep. I start asking them some questions. They got all the wrong answers. I start breaking it down. I gave them the flavor of the street at the time. How they used to tap into the street lights with the electricity to run the turntables on the corners, and just talking about all that stuff. And the whole room's on fire, right? And we're playing Ohio players, and we're playing spinners, and we're playing all kinds of old school stuff, and the place is going wild. And by the end of the class, they said to me, Professor, you white, but you got soul. And they started calling me Professor White Chocolate. So it was like, this is just like an experience. My life's been filled with them. I had to write a list of fears at one point. This guy says to me, I want you to make a list of fears. Because you're so fear-based. So I make a list of fears, and he says to me, he looks at the list and he goes, now you know what you got to do. And I said, no. He said, you have to go after these fears. You have to conquer these fears. And I'm like, maybe you, but not me. He said, no. He said, that first one right there, you're going to go after it. I'm like, how do I do that? He said, I don't know. Find out. Go figure it out. And I did it. And I was beginning to be successful at it. And I was like, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. We limit ourselves because we stay fear-based. This program is supposed to teach us how to live out there, how to deal with life out there, how to go after it, to realize our dreams, to be fulfilled, to find out who and what we want to be. And that's what it's given to me. So I was able to do that, and that was right about when I decided to go to school instead. And then that, charted a different path for me. And so, I've been up, I've been down, I've been a homeowner 6 different times. I have great credit, thanks Mom. And so, going back about tomorrow, 4 years ago tomorrow, God sent me the most wonderful person that I've ever known. And, I've been through a lot of stuff and experienced stuff and made decisions I shouldn't have made and thought that you know what, you're just going to be alone for the rest of your life. Just deal with it and just make the best of it. But I was pretty happy on my own at that point. And all of a sudden, somebody sends me a message on Messenger that I met in 2012, and we haven't stopped talking since. And we've been together ever since. And I go we're best friends. I know that sounds corny. We're best friends. We have the greatest time together. We laugh all the time. She thinks I'm the funniest person she knows, which is good for my ego. And so, because I'm really not. So I do a lot of impressions, but of nobody you'd know. I do like the next door neighbor and the guy down the street and this guy in the store. I do that kind of stuff. So, but we have so much fun, and she has helped me to see some things differently. She's got a softness and a heart and I go, man, where does that come from? And that I'm so fortunate that that's part of my life. And it's just been I'm already collecting Social Security. I can't believe I just said that. In about 15 months, I get Medicare. I can't believe I just said that. Hey, where's my Medicare people? So, like, I can't believe I just said that out loud, right? But this is where my life is, because I should have been dead 40 plus years ago. But this is stuff that's like, you handle it. And so, it's just unbelievable that here I am in my early 60s, well, almost mid, and I am living the best years of my life, bar none. The best years of my life, completely. Through all of this recovery, through all of this stuff, through everything that I've talked about, this is where I am. And I've got a connection with a higher power that is so deep inside of me, where it was intellectual in the beginning, it's deep down in here now. And I could not imagine living without it. It's like oxygen. And I would never want to be without it. It's like, and I've heard this said by other people, God brought me to AA and AA brought me to God. And I really believe that that was true for me. And so it's been an experience that you do not want to miss, because there is so much fun to be had in recovery and in life. And so face the fears, conquer those fears. Don't ever forget where you came from, right? This is the foundation. We have to nurture the foundation. We can't just walk away from this and go, okay, now I can go live my life. I'm good. Thanks a lot, AA. And we can't do that, because we're going to I will end up back where I was. And I know that. I have no doubt in my mind, if I walk away from Alcoholics Anonymous and from what gave me this life, I'm going to be drunk and dead in short order. My luck, I'll kill somebody in a car accident, in a blackout. I'll do 15 years in prison. I'm not going to prison. I'm too cute to go to prison. No, that's a joke. That's a joke. That's a joke. That's a joke. I would not do good in prison. I would not do good in prison. So, freedom. Recovery has provided me freedom beyond my wildest dreams, and you cannot put a price tag on that. And so I'm going to keep doing what works, and I hope everybody else does too. Thanks.